Psychology is the new firewall, where human insight trumps every trick. We're not hacking systems, we're hacking behaviors so you won't click. No complicated code, just tried and true brain science at play. Social engineering for good, the best defense is in your mind today.
Hello and welcome to Fishing for Answers, where the carrot beats the stick and we flip the script on the bad guys, turning humans from easy targets into the strongest line of defense.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast belong solely to the hosts and guests and don't necessarily reflect those of their employers or sponsors. We're seasoned security professionals, but this is a conversation, not a custom consultation. Need specific guidance? Reach out to Joshua Crumbaugh directly.
Get ready. Fishing for Answers starts right now.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Fishing for Answers. Today I'm here with Sean Walls. He is the CISO at Bob's Discount Furniture. I've never been there, but I see their ads all the time on CNBC while I'm just have it out in the background during the day. But tell us a little bit more about yourself. How'd you get into cybersecurity and what's your journey been like?
Well, Joshua, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. And so in terms of my background, as a lot of folks that have been in this industry for decades, like myself, I've been in IT and security for over 30 years now, right? So I started in the mid 90s. People that started back then, security really wasn't a thing, right? Security was a firewall, maybe antivirus. Security. Yeah, what security exactly? And so I started my journey in IT, right? And ended up starting in Canada. I was born in Los Angeles, but grew up in Canada. Spent about 25 years, almost 25 years up in Canada growing up. So started my career there in IT. Ended up moving to the States or back to the States, I should say, in 2000. So I took a director of IT position with a moderate size telephony company, and then spent a few years doing that and took an opportunity with Blackbox. So you've been around long enough. I'm sure you remember Blackbox. They're still around, but they're not quite in the same form as they were, 20, 25 years ago. They were the big boy on the block, right? They were a $6 billion company. And this was around 2003 or so. And then Sarbanes-Oxley occurred, right? So we had Enron, we had WorldCom, and the fiascos that kind of spawned that need, right? That legal need. So SOX became a thing, and nobody had really done it. And I was a senior consultant with Blackbox at the time, and they were asking for volunteers, people to raise their hand to help with this new sort of approach to security. Because really, this was around the time, SOX came out. Within a year or two of that, the security rule for HIPAA came out, right, in 2003, I think. Yeah. And then shortly after that, we had the first iteration of the DSS for PCI, right? So security was really starting to blossom and to come into its own, right? So the timing for me was perfect in the sense that, I was from a technical perspective, very knowledgeable about IT, about route switch, data centers, Microsoft. I mean, you name it. I knew things inside and out, and I knew the security from a technical perspective. The tooling, the controls, the technical controls you needed to have in place, but the governance, right? This was a new concept for security, right? Organizing it in a way where you manage governance, risk, and compliance, where you have cyber operations, you have policies and standards and frameworks that we follow, right? And processes, and so it kind of forced security to make a monumental shift at that time, right? From a technical focus to a risk-based, standardized, governed approach, right? And so it was a really good opportunity for me. So I raised my hand, of course, looking for an opportunity to learn, to grow. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into at the time, but it really morphed from there into about an 8 or 9 year journey as a senior security consultant, right? So I kind of went into the security consulting space, doing things like building security programs for organizations on NIST or ISO, working on compliance frameworks and obligations and audits and preparations for those kinds of things, but also the more technical and more fun, right? The more fun side, the ethical hacking and the social engineering.
I will say, I've grown up. I mean, I've built my career on hacking, but I love the audit work too, and the building out the programs and just all of that, because I don't know, to me, it's a different side when you get to go in and talk to them and discover the issues with their program and help build out that new program from scratch.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, I agree with you 100%. And at the end of the day, when you're building a program, it's about people following processes and leveraging technology, right? It's not technology, and it's not just people, it's process driven, right? And so understanding what's in place, even though it's not documented or it might be socialized to a certain degree, repeatable from a cultural perspective, but so you need to flush those things out. You need to talk to folks. So I agree with you on that. And so anyway, so long story short, ended up spending about eight or so years consulting. Ended up leading a consulting team of we almost had 50 folks at Presidio at the time. And then, from that point, I've been in executive leadership since about, the early teens, so about 15 years or so now, 11 or 12 in executive leadership roles with various organizations, right? I've been with, in numerous verticals, but, the last, 7 years has been really focused on retail primarily, but also insurance and healthcare and things along those lines, right? So, so I love the field, love the dynamic nature of it, especially nowadays. I mean, it's scary in a sense because we have the emergence of these new technologies that are changing and transforming the world, right? Not just the world, but security and security landscape. And so dealing with that, for me, I look at it as a challenge, as an exciting time to be alive, right? Because it's so cool. But at the same time, it keeps us busy because we have to deal with what was already a volatile threat landscape is becoming even that much more volatile and changing continuously and dramatically. So, but I wouldn't have it any other way. To be honest with you.
New threat vectors that hadn't even been considered before. Whereas, for the last, I don't know, I'd say better part of 10 years, most of the new threat vectors were more incremental. They weren't as, just such a paradigm shift in how we think about attacking networks, exfiltrating data, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a ton of. I mean, we have two different angles when we talk about protecting against things like AI, for example, right? We have the external threat, which is what are the threat actors doing with this new tooling and capabilities that they have at their disposal, right? And then what are we doing internally to manage the threat here? Because we have, all kinds of publicly available AI for folks, and it's making their jobs incredibly easy, and it's incredibly tempting for them to go there and take company data and put it into these chat engines and or AI engines, and then once it's there, it's gone forever, right? And we don't have control over it at any point. And then the owner of that particular technology now has control of that data. They can use it for training. They can share as they see fit, right? And so that's a real problem. So managing the external versus the internal. But the external side, we're seeing a pretty significant uptick in the sophistication and the quality and the believableness of these phishing attacks, right?
So that actually leads me to a question that I wanted to ask, and that is, most of the people that I talk to on here are reporting that they're definitively seeing AI attack them. Is that something that you would agree with, that you are seeing AI attack your organization?
To definitively say that where you have hard evidence, it's difficult. But what I can say is that the attacks are becoming more automated, more sophisticated, and especially in the realm of phishing, right? Where historically the mistakes, the grammar errors, the spelling mistakes, just that the context, the format. I mean, the little things were so easy to pick up, right? Now those are much more nuanced, more difficult to identify, and above and beyond that, they're impersonating folks at a level of believability that is off the charts, right? So it's so in terms of, do we have definitive evidence that yes, this is AI and attacking us? No, but we have anecdotal evidence that tells us that things are changing, right? And it's obviously driven by tools like AI, and so so it's a material threat that we're dealing with, and it's becoming increasingly more problematic and powerful as time goes on. I mean, the rate at which this change is taking place is unprecedented, right? We're talking about, from an adoption perspective, we're talking about more than doubling year over year.
Yeah. So to that point, IBM reported, I believe it was IBM that reported an 800% increase in attacks in 24 during 2024. And I would argue that it's probably going to be worse than that in 2025 because technology is things that we can do with AI now, we couldn't fathom being able to do in 2024. And I'm thinking about that from a defensive perspective, but 100% that there are people out there thinking about that from an offensive perspective. And every time we pay a ransom, every time there's a successful extortion, we're funding them to build better technology that is more capable at exploiting and hacking our people. So with that, you say that it's getting a lot more intelligent and sophisticated. Give me some examples of what you're seeing, and particularly the part that you mentioned around, what was it that you said, that the realism or it's incredibly believable that their impersonation or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, without giving specific examples, the things that we're seeing is the context, right? A shift in the context, a shift in the awareness of our business practices, a shift in the awareness of our business partners, and being able to spoof, a business partner, a vendor trying to get us to wire money. I mean, the context, the visuals when it comes to the attachments and the invoices that they provide, the contact information, the context within the business of how we leverage their service. I mean, they seem to be very, very convincing, right? And so that indicates that they're doing incredibly good research and this is a targeted attack, or they're using AI to target a bunch of people, almost like a password spraying attack, but being very intentional and deliberate about every target and letting AI do that research and provide the context. And we know this from a theoretical perspective, and we can read the literature, and we know that this capability is there and that threat actors are using it. And we're seeing it absolutely in our environments for sure.
I'm seeing it in every environment, by the way. And that brings me to a really critical topic that you highlighted. You said they know your business practices and your different things like that about you. And one of the things that I'm seeing in mass across all of my clients is role-based phishing, where my finance people are being targeted according to their role. My developers are being targeted according to their role. My IT people are being targeted according to their role, and my executives are being targeted according to their role. Oh, HR as well, being just a few roles that I'm seeing on the regular.
Yep.
How does that align with what you're seeing?
We're seeing the exact same thing. And as a matter of fact, recently we pivoted and kind of countered that trend that we're seeing by developing role-based training, right, from a security awareness perspective, right? And so, I mean, we've had a decent security program in the past from a security awareness training perspective, but when it comes to specific roles like finance, for example, how do you manage invoices, accounts payable, wire transfers, these kinds of things to ensure that there's checks and balances and fraud, the likelihood of fraud is reduced, right? So we're seeing these targeted attacks for sure, and the counter to this is continuous awareness, right? And just pummeling folks with regular notices and alerts, threat alerts, those kinds of things, role-based training, leveraging October Cybersecurity Awareness Month to make it a festivity that drives security to top of mind, right? And at the end of the day, our people are our greatest asset, right? I mean, some folks say that our people are our biggest threat, but in my opinion, it's the complete opposite if you do it right?
I literally feel like I'm looking in a mirror or listening to a recording of myself, because I constantly talk about this, and it's so incredibly rare that I run across an organization that is actively doing role-based training. So first and foremost, that's really big props to you there. But along those lines, uh, there's a formula for behavior change. And it was developed by Stanford, or by a professor out of Stanford University, and it's B equals MAP. And basically it says B, behavior, you'll only get this, desired behavior or outcome if you have M, A, and P all combined. Well, M is motivation. We know what motivates people. It's their ego, their family, their finances. So that's fairly easy to tap into. A is ability, and I'm only just now finally seeing the security industry as a whole say we've got to make cybersecurity easier. And the thing I like to say here is that when security is the easiest option, it becomes the default option. And that's why I love things like passkeys, where we're getting rid of passwords in favor of a much more secure tool that makes the user's lives easier. And then the final one is P for prompting, and this basically says that people are not going to think about this, whatever the desired behavior is. In our case, it's cybersecurity. And on the regular, without being prompted, because while you and I might, that's not their expertise, and they're probably even going to try and avoid thinking about it, if anything. And so because of that, we have to prompt them to make sure that it stays front of mind. And that's where the continuous training, the constant nudges, everything that you were just talking about comes into play. And that's why I think it's so critical that training is not only continuous, but that it's truly bite size and micro, because one of the things that we see is our society, it's all short form video that everyone's moving toward. Attention spans are getting shorter. And I think we have to embrace that, and really the rules of advertising if we want to be successful in our security awareness campaigns.
Yeah, no, well said. I mean, I agree with every point that you made, and the key, I think, to your point, is the frequency. Not just the frequency, the number of touch points, the frequent touch points that we have with folks, but also the different modes, right? You want to make your security awareness multimodal, right? So sometimes we have in-person workshops, like security workshops. We had one recently on AI, for example, where we're talking to people about the risks associated with AI, how to use AI safely, and those kinds of things. And then you have video based. You have alerts that we send via email. We have October gamifications and video series and things like dramatic series that keep it interesting, keep people engaged. And what this does is this drives top of mind awareness, right? So it makes security less of this obscure, abstract, concept that nobody really understands, to something that makes sense, right? And it makes it relevant. I think you hit on a good point on what drives people, what motivates people, right? And when you can take security and translate it into their personal life, how to protect their own finances, their children online, their personal identifiable information, and those kinds of things, a light goes off, right? People get it at that point.
Can I add to that point? Something that I've found, I've focused heavily on what I call social engineering for good, because I spent much of my career as a red teamer, and found out that I was very good at social engineering. I attribute it to the fact that I studied marketing and advertising in school. And what is that other than offensive psychology, right? But I bring that up because when I approached this problem, I thought, how can we better get people to engage? And so there's all these little tricks along the way that I've learned. And one of them is exactly that, sending them home with homework and taking it to them to give to their children, Roblox scams, or to give to their parents, elderly scams. But what's interesting with that is over the course of a year or two, as you keep giving them homework and as they go home and they take that to their children, to their parents, they become the expert on cybersecurity at home. And it begins to shift their mentality entirely, because when anyone at home now has questions, they're going to come to them. But it also forces them to think about it a little bit differently. And that's one of those seeds that you can plant that I like to think of that grows over time and just gets, I don't know, becomes more impactful, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, agreed 100%. And I think that on that same topic, or same point, security awareness is something that grows over time, period, in the organization, right? It becomes a cultural thing. I'm not sure where that threshold is, or that boundary is, where you cross over and it becomes ingrained in culture. But at some point it does, right? And in order for that to happen, not only do you have to have the frequency that you talked about and make it relevant for, for their personal lives, but we also have to have, buy-in from the top, right? If we don't have executive buy-in and that tone from the top that drives or emphasizes, we'll say, the importance of cybersecurity, not just to the organization, but to our security strategy and to who we are as an organization, you're signing up for a failing, battle, right? You're going to lose this fight. And so,
just to echo that, it frustrates me immensely that we still have the CEO gift card scam. Because all we have to do to stop it is have a CEO send people emails saying, hey, security is important. And if they get the first email from the real CEO, they'll never fall for the email from the fake CEO. But the problem is that we're not doing that. There's been it's just, to me, one of those things that should be put on autopilot, where it's day one, they're getting that greeting from the CEO. Because to me, that is how we drive that sort of corporate culture. The other thing you said about how momentum builds and people come along, I like to advertise it. 76% of your coworkers have already done this, because people will follow.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah. And in our case, I've been fortunate, at least here at, actually, for that matter, all companies that I've worked for at an executive level have bought into cybersecurity. I'm not sure what degree that my influence had anything to do with it, but it's fortunate. And here at Bob's is no different, right? We have at the executive level, at the ELT level, at the CEO level, we have the highest level of buy-in and support. And part of our strategy for rolling out security awareness training is to emphasize that support up front before the people even start the training. There's a message from leadership on the importance and the significance of these activities and the contribution that everybody makes to security, right?
So we actually track this. One of the cool things about running a security awareness company is I can look at the difference a launch from a CEO makes over a launch from a CISO. Yep. And it's about 20% difference. And I mean, I can't emphasize how critical it is that the CEO jumps in and says, hey, this is critical. This is a key initiative. And drives home those key points that, I actually just switched the graphic on this screen because I like to use, one of the things I like to talk about is policy and how we always make it overly complex. And as a result of that, no one understands what they're signing. And so we're not able to take advantage of the commitment bias that people have. It's a cognitive bias that people are biased to follow through on what they've signed their name to. But that's only if they understand it. And so I like to change the approach and make it to where it's all super simple. Of the master security policy is one paragraph, sort of like what you see here. And I bring that up because it's that initial buy-in that I think is so critical in driving that culture.
Right. We could go back and forth on that point, because I think there's value to what you said, but I think the detail and the granularity that's required in a master information security policy, or a master information security standard for that matter, needs to be there, right? A paragraph is not going to cut it. It's not going to be enforceable from an audit, from a compliance perspective. Now, I understand that for general consumption, that
5 other policies that are plug and play based on the employee.
What I find, Joshua, is that the certain policies are not for general consumption, right? So the master information security policy, the standard, for example, that goes to the IT teams, the infrastructure, the dev teams, the folks that are going to be that are the control owners, the ones that are going to own and be responsible for ensuring the effectiveness of these controls and so on. Now, the whole paragraph thing for the general population, I agree with watering down and keeping it real simple, because you're not going to send a 120-page master information security policy to a general employee and have them sign it, right? We do it for IT, but we wouldn't do that for the general population, right? We'd have more
And I
of
think
an
you
acceptable
follow it
use.
up with an acceptable use policy.
There you go.
I still like to make it plain text, but it might be 10, 15 bullet points that are simple stuff, like don't let your kids install software. Well, they shouldn't be able to, but can't tell you how many times I've seen that one. Why is there a game installed here? I don't know. My kids use it.
That's a bigger problem. If your kids are installing games on your laptop, work laptop, then you got bigger problems.
We've got a governance policy.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I think this has all been really good. We're getting close to time, because I like to keep these under 30 minutes. But one of the things that we haven't talked about yet that I think is so critical is phishing and really driving what I like to call human virus definitions. And one of the things or sort of mentalities that I see a lot of is this 3 strikes and you're out, or, you fail, you get penalized, you fail again, you get a steeper penalty, you fail enough times, you get fired. And as I've looked at this, I've become more and more convinced that we should really just phish our users the more they fail versus penalizing them, because the best way to build those instincts is through hands-on learning and sometimes failing.
Yeah. I like that idea. So I've used a number of the tricks or the techniques, practices that you just mentioned, except for the phishing folks that fail multiple times. So like what we do is we'll phish on a regular basis, and if somebody fails, we'll put them through remedial training. If they don't complete remedial training, there's an escalation process to deal with that. And we're not the kind of company that would, well, I won't even go into how we enforce these things, but what my point was is that the whole idea of going back and phishing somebody over again, and if they fail a second time, okay, they get another remedial training, and then the third time, and eventually they're going to catch on, because they're going to be getting phishing attacks every single day, and I kind of like that approach. I'm going to think about that to see if that's something that we want to adopt, and if it's capable with the tool that we use.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's actually how we do it. And part of the reason is I have this, I'm actually giving a talk about it right now, going around the country, but it's called Why Your Employees Need to Click on More Phishing Emails. Seriously. But I call it the immunization theory. And it's basically this. How does a vaccine work? We take a weakened strain of a virus, we expose the body to it in order to have it develop immunities. Phishing is no different. It taps into our body's already innate ability to detect on threats, our subconscious. And it begins to train our subconscious on how to detect on those threats. And yes, at a certain extent, our conscious, but it's building these human virus definitions, particularly when on the other side of that click, you have really strong just-in-time training that says, ooh, watch out for urgency, watch out for authority, watch out for whatever that core threat is that's being hit. And that's the reason I'm a really big fan of the more you click, the more you get phished. And I know with our platform, it actually breaks everything into buckets. So right now we've got 23 different categories of types of phishing attacks, right? And so the more you click on from any one of those buckets, the higher the frequency of phishing from that bucket.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is your platform you're talking about.
Yeah, that's Phish Firewall. And I'm not trying to, we're vendor agnostic here. Just more talking about the approach, because to me, I think we need to be phishing more. Once a quarter is not enough for most employees.
Right. I would agree with that, and I like I said, I like that idea. I'm going to take that back and chew on that a little bit.
Awesome. So this has been great talking to you. I can tell that this is a safe question to ask you before we wrap the show. What are your pet peeves?
What are my pet peeves
in cybersecurity? Yes.
That's an interesting question. It's interesting in the sense that what is my biggest pet peeve? Like, what is the thing that bothers me the most? Right.
See, that's right. That's why I knew it was safe to ask you this question. Continue. So many people
Yeah.
don't have pet peeves, but I knew you would.
Yeah. So, I mean, a pet peeve. I don't know, man. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking, folks that, I think it's the people that repeat the mistakes that they make over and over again, and it boils down to poor hygiene, and what we've seen over time, what I've seen at least, is there's an 80-20 rule, right? Where 20% of the folks are the biggest offenders, 80% are usually pretty good. And these 20% are the ones that repeat things over and over again, using weak passwords, falling for phishing attacks, circumventing security controls. Because what ends up happening is we end up chasing these few, folks that are rogue, we'll say, right? That aren't following or aren't marching to the same beat as everybody else, aren't following the rules. And these are the ones that give end users the label of being the biggest risk within an organization, right? Because they're the ones that create the issue. The 80%, they're doing great, and if we can get those 20% to comply, it would be great, right? So I say that my biggest pet peeve are just those that don't get on board, right? Don't understand, don't think security applies to them, that they're special in some way, and they have a privilege to circumvent our standards or our controls, and tend to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Because if you look at who falls for phishing attacks, it's always the same bunch of people, right? For the most part, you might have a couple extra ones per quarter or whenever you measure, but the ones that are repeat, these are the ones that do it over and over and over and over again, and they're usually people that that think the law doesn't apply to them, that they're above reproach to a certain degree, that their job is more important than security. And at the end of the day, that's not true. I mean, security has the potential to take a business down, right? So we all need to be doing our part, right? And
we've seen it recently. There was a business that went under because of a ransomware attack. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but this was just a couple months ago. I mean, it happens, and it happens all the time. Even to companies that have insurance, because not always is insurance going to pay out. If you're not doing the things you told that insurance company you're going to do, they may not pay out.
That's right. I mean, at the end of the day, there are so many horror stories of big, large, reputable companies. Just off the top of my head, like of course, we've got Target back in the day. We've got MGM recently, right? Twitter and Google had their issues not so long ago. Facebook and Google, they had some kind of wire fraud issue not too long ago where they lost $100 million. I mean, there's countless stories.
That one deserves a whole podcast episode. I think we should just do a deep dive on that one. But yeah, no, 100 million in invoice fraud, which is just
over 2 years. How do you miss that? I don't get how they didn't reconcile that even from a financial or an accounting perspective. How did they catch that? Blows my mind.
I assume multiple people were fired over that one.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, we're talking like big companies too. I mean, this was back in 2013 maybe, so they weren't as big as they are today. But it was Google and Facebook, I think.
Exactly, and they have huge governance teams. So I mean, the fact that did slip through is a bit concerning.
Yeah, no kidding. No doubt about it. Yeah, but it's an uphill battle. But you know what? I'm seeing a positive shift in the mentality, in the paradigm that people have when it comes to cybersecurity. I mean, I going back to Target. I mean, I saw that shift. I was in consulting back in 2013, right? And getting work for security was challenging back then. Winning work and keeping busy because people just didn't prioritize security. Target happened, and I saw a massive shift in that momentum, right? And it changed significantly.
And because they were PCI compliant, I think that was one of the eye-opening things to a lot of people there.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And security at the end of the day is this umbrella. It's all encompassing. Vendors are not immune, right? As a matter of fact, vendors are one of your biggest threats. And so we got to keep that, security is a holistic approach to the business. It's not just the technology, it's over the entire business. And so and we started to realize that in 2013, and in the last 12 or so years, the industry has matured in significantly profound ways, right? In my opinion.
Yeah, and vendors are still the biggest threat. I would say more often than I ever come I'm helping out a potential client or an existing client with something that happened inside of their infrastructure, it's one of their vendors that was compromised, and that became the weak link. And so, I mean, I can't emphasize vendor security enough. If you're letting them touch your networks, if you're letting them access your facilities or so many other things, you really need to know what your vendor security looks like.
Agreed, 100%. And and to be honest with you, that's something that's really just taken off from a security perspective in the last 7 or 8 years, right? I mean, vendor risk management, third-party risk management, whatever you want to call it. It's something that was not really emphasized 10 years ago. You go back 10 years and people wouldn't even know I mean, vendor risk from a purchasing, a viability, perspective, that was a thing. But cybersecurity and the questionnaires, I mean, there were only a few people that were doing that back, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I just wish those companies would learn how to handle my infrastructure. I've got massive phishing domains that have to be linked to us, otherwise legal will pull them away. Which causes me some issues when it comes to those vendor reports. But actually, some of them are actually clients of mine, and I give them crap about it every time we talk. So, well, hey, this has been a phenomenal episode. Thank you so much for all of the words of wisdom that you've shared with us today. If you would stick with me just for a little bit after the show here. For those of you joining remotely, we will see you again next week. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Joshua. We'll see everybody.
Pay up now. Yeah. Everybody just can't find the pieces, and I want you. And I get ready. This white for a Marvin Gaye, it's me. Hey, it's me, your CFO. No time to ask, just wire $5 million. It's a simple task. Oh, and by the way, I need a jet by noon and a diamond Rolex to match my tune. It's me, your CFO. Send that dough. I need $1 trillion and a golden chateau. Trust my voice, I'm legit, don't doubt. Now send the cash before I freak out. It's me, your CFO. It's urgent, bro. And don't forget the ruby briefcase. Whoa, I'm totally real. Just trust this face, but maybe